So we are back with a recap of the 2023 offseason. What do you call it in baseball? The offseason covers 2 years. So 2023 into 2024 offseason. Here we go. So, like I said in the offseason preview, I was trying to plan a trade for Jack Flaherty, the best pitcher in baseball, who put up, I don't know, 7.6 WAR last year, and we did pull the trade off, and it was similar to, I think, what I mentioned. It was a decent price, but they were definitely, I guess, motivated to move him and really liked some of my guys and motivated to move him because he has 2 years before an opt out, and they wanted to maximize his trade value. So traded Luke Weaver, who'd been my number 2, 3 starter the last couple of years, but really had been pretty disappointing overall since the trade. Park was a guy I'd claimed in the Rule 5 draft a few years ago and had turned into a legit middle infielder, maybe like backup slash starter, but he can get on base a bunch. He can field really well. So that's him. Looks like they might have released him already, which makes no sense. Adam Hall, who is definitely he's penciled right in to start at second base for them this year, and he would have gotten definitely some playing time for me. But I was able to get rid of these two middle infielders because I had some depth there. And then Matt Barnes was a guy who really struggled for me last year out of the bullpen, but scouts still think he's good, and I think they will probably pitch him. I mean, he's slated to be their closer, which is what he was for me some of the year last year, but just wasn't good enough. He's on a cheap contract, so if they still believe in him, that makes sense. And then Colton Hawk was a guy who was definitely going to pitch out of my pen this year. They put him on waivers for some reason and got claimed. I missed that. So, a little wonky stuff here by the AI they sometimes do. And, two of the five pieces that they gave up for the best pitcher in baseball, they've already, tried to move on from. So, but it was, in some ways, regards that makes sense in terms of how not that they got rid of them, but Weaver, Hall, and Barnes were the three guys they were most interested in. Weaver and Hall, there was no way the deal was getting done unless it was Weaver, Hall, and 2 to 3 other decent pieces. So that's the deal for Flaherty. So he'll pencil in as my number one starter, and I'll go through my whole roster for the after spring training and all that when I do an update for the season preview. This is just kind of the moves that happen now, but I'll put it in the fuller context of the roster here after I finish spring training. So I'll look at a few of the free agents I signed. I just added 3 bullpen pieces. So Andrew Chafin, he comes in to replace Andrew Miller as my lefty specialist. He's younger. I just think he's better than Miller. He's an extreme ground ball pitcher, which is great. He wasn't great last year. He pitched for both San Diego and Arizona, and he was actually in AAA for a little bit. And between the two, he put up negative .1 WAR. But my scout, I think I need to just keep him in a specialist role because, as you can see here, his ratings versus right-handed and left-handed, he goes from being an average pitcher versus right-handed to having very good stuff against left-hander, elite movement, and average control. So he's a very good pitcher against lefties, and he's super cheap. So if it doesn't work out, no big deal. It's 1 year, $1.1 million deal. And then a 1 year, $3 million deal to Archie Bradley. This is because I traded Matt Barnes, traded Colton Hawk, Jairo Diaz, who was my closer half of the year, left via free agency. So I brought in Archie Bradley, another extreme ground ball guy. And on a 1 year, $3 million deal, he's 31 years old, and he was a guy I tried to get off of the Dodgers a few times after the 2022 season when he was terrible and put up negative 1.0 WAR. But he's been pretty decent over the sim over the 4 seasons that I've sim. 1.6, 1.4, negative 1.0, and then just 0.6 last year. But his ERA and his FIP were both below 4. He's striking out 12.6 guys per 9. I like him. He's probably just giving a middle relief role for me, and I think he's really good for that level. And then then I signed Jordan Hicks to a 2-year, $18 million deal. The second year is an option year with how much is the buyout on that? $1.1 million buyout. So I'm really only in for $10.1 million if I want to buy him out after this year. He spent the last 2 seasons with the Mets, put up 1.8 WAR in 2022, and then last year put up 2.3 WAR in 48 innings, which is just astounding. His ERA was 4.1, but he had terrible luck. 4.1 is a league average ERA in the league last year, as you can tell with this 101 ERA plus. But his FIP was 1.9. Batting average in balls in play was 412, which is just crazy above average. He still struck out 13.8 guys per nine. He walked some guys, 5.4. That's a little higher than I like to see. But he didn't give up a single home run. Elite stuff, elite movement, elite fastball, elite slider. He's got an average curveball, average control. He seems to be a little bit of a jerk and lazy, but hey, man, if you put up 2.3 WAR as a closer for me, I can put up with whatever attitude problems you have. So those were the three free agents I signed. I also remember that I had said that I wanted to go out and get a right-handed hitting infielder, and Edmonds the switch hitter, so I kind of stalled there. What I meant is a guy who can play against lefties, because I have Gunnar Henderson at shortstop, who's going to need some rests against lefties. Nick Matan is my third baseman, who just was terrible against lefties last year, and I also just wanted another solid major league middle infielder, having traded Park and Hall to the Cardinals. The Cardinals were not interested in adding Edmund to the Flaherty deal. I tried that at the time, but I came back to them later, and the deal that I got for them was this. I traded them DJ Wilson, who is just a career minor league outfielder who had a monster year last year in A-ball for me, putting up 5.1 WAR. But I guess they like him as depth. They have him in Double-A, maybe. And he can field center field, and he's got good work ethic. So he's good minor league depth. And then the guy they really liked was Garrett Gooden, who I didn't love giving him up. He put up 1.2 WAR for me last year in Bowie. And basically every team that I had trade talks with this offseason asked about this guy. Ground ball pitcher. He is 25, though, and he's going to be 26 before the season starts. I had acquired him in the draft. I got him in the 15th round of the 2020 draft, which was my first draft. And he developed into a decent pitching prospect who could pitch at the back end of a major league rotation. His movement and control aren't great. His stuff is fine, but he's got two really good pitches and an okay changeup. I think he'll probably spend some time in the majors, but he wasn't going to help me this year, and he was pretty far down my pitching depth in terms of my prospects. So I just wanted to give that up for Edmund. Edmund's under team control for this year and next year, so he'll play a lot against lefties, and honestly, he could work his way in against righties some too, with just how many positions he can play. I won't play him at short or center, but in second, third, left, right, absolutely he'll play. The next piece of big news is I did sign Ryan Mountcastle to an extension. He signed to a 7-year, $77.75 million deal, which I don't love tying up a ton of money in a first baseman on a long-term deal, just because shortstop, center field, starting pitching is where you really want to have your superstars, I think, if you can. But this is a really reasonable contract that I'll be able to move even if he kind of plummets. So these are his arbitration years are at 6, 7, 5, and 10, 5. And then I bought out some free agency years at 12.25, 12, 5, 14, and then a team option for $15 million with a $2.5 million buyout. So it's 7 years. He'll be 27 this year. So I've got him tied up until he's about 34, which is a little longer than I wanted to go. I tried to do 6 years with the last year as an option year. So, but he was not having that. I was trying to just commit to 5 years total, or 5 years guaranteed, and then an option year. But he was adamant about the 7 years, but was okay with the last year being an option year. And he also was adamant about the average annual value being over $11 million. I was trying to do 6 years and a bit lower. So I'll take it. I think that's a good deal. So a couple other things that I did was Alex Verdugo. I avoided arbitration with him. He won the MVP award, actually. I know I updated before the awards, and he was definitely going to be in the running, but he actually won the award. I believe Mountcastle and Larnach also got some second-place votes, but finished way down the ballot. But I was able to agree to a 1-year, $16.15 million deal for him in his last year of arbitration. That was a bit above, somewhere above where my estimates were, where the arbitration estimate by, I guess, my organization was. But I was willing to do that to avoid losing arbitration and paying like 18, 19, 20 million. I don't think I'll bring him back after this, just because, well, he wants 9 years, $375 million. I'm sure I could get him for a good bit cheaper than that, but he's just not a guy I'm going to build around right now. I have other guys I'm going to build around. And so then I also signed Austin Hayes, avoided arbitration for him. His first year of arbitration comes in at $2.65 million. Honestly, I might move on from Austin Hayes at some point. He's just been average at best, below average at times too for me. He hits a lot of home runs. Also, the Rule 5 draft, I actually selected somebody. I selected this catcher, Rafael Marchand. And the reason I did this is because he's a good defensive catcher and he has a good work ethic. He's not a leader, but basically so I'll be paying in the league minimum about 565,000, I think it is, somewhere around there, if not. And so I had been looking at a few veteran catchers who are really good defensively and were also leaders, but I was going to pay them 1 to 1.5 million. So I figured I'd save $500,000 plus, grab this guy in the Rule 5 draft, and he's only 24. So even if he makes it through this year on my team, and after that he can maybe be depth in AAA, or maybe he'll continue to be Rutschman's backup. But I just wanted somebody who was really good defensively. This guy fits the bill, and I save a bit of money. Just to go to the Offseason Center to look at a couple of the big deals here. Chris Archer at 35 years old signed for 3 years and $61 million with the Red Sox. Let's see here. Alex Wood left the Orioles to go, also went to the Red Sox, 4 years, $64 million. So they're really investing in those mid-30s pitchers. Good for them. Eduardo Rodriguez signed a 7-year deal for $6.6 million per year, which is interesting. The big one is Corey Seager went to the Giants, 7 years, $21.6 million per year, $151 million total. And then let's see, there were a couple others. David Dahl went for 4 years, $88 million to the Cubs. The Cubs also signed Max Kepler, so they're looking to improve their infield. That was about it. Alberto Mondesi was the highest rated free agent to start the offseason, and he's been looking for like 8 years, around $20 million. I'm not going to sign him. I don't have any need for him. He's brought his ass down to 16, still wants an opt out. He was a pretty good player last year. He put up he put up 3.7 because he split time between the Royals and then got traded to the Astros at the deadline. He's put up about 3 WAR per season the last 3 years. He's a decent player, but it's interesting how long he's sat out there. I made a couple other smaller trades. There's the Flaherty trade. I brought in C.J. Abrams, which is not a big deal as it might sound in real life right now. He's kind of flopped as a prospect, but I always like to bring in shortstops just to add to the organization. I like to have good fielding shortstops, which he is. But his bat, he's at A ball and can't really hit A ball pitching. He's not going to amount to much, but I just traded some depth pitching for him. I also traded this guy. Tanner Allen was a guy who was in my organization, and I was going to have to add to the Rule 5 draft, and I just didn't have the ability to do it. And so I traded a couple decent pitchers, but I got back some pretty good ones, and Mac Anglin was the main piece that I got back here, number 160 prospect in baseball. As you can see, he's 23 and only in low A ball. He just got because he got drafted in 2023 and pitched in rookie ball and was fine. We'll see what he does. If he comes out of the gates firing in June when the short A season starts, I'll bump him up, but that's the most interesting guy that I got. I also brought in Stephen Piscotty, who's on a minor league deal because I needed more right-handed outfield hitting depth in my organization. After Austin Hayes and Byron Buxton, the rest of my outfielders on my 40-man roster are lefties. I'm sorry. So I wanted some righties. So I gave up pretty much a nobody for him. They were willing to trade him. Tyler Myrick is a minor league pitcher who's generated a lot of interest after he put up a decent season in Frederick, 1.3 WAR in 70 innings. I don't see much use for him, so I added more right field depth. Sandro Fabian, he's actually on the 40-man roster. He won't start up the year with me, but he's got 3 option years left. He's spent the last 3 years on the bench for the Giants in a bench role, about 150 at-bats per season. I just needed more right-handed hitters in case somebody gets hurt. And I got 2 kind of like depth organization guys who could come up if I'm in a pinch. So yeah, that's kind of the off season, and I will update the preseason kind of preview with the standings and my 26-man roster and all that. But pretty active off season with those trades, with the trade for Flaherty and the Mountcastle extension. And I will be back with the next update soon.